If I told you to picture a ruthless, visionary Hollywood studio mogul, like someone who fundamentally engineered the modern television business model and, single-handedly brought Star Trek to the world, who would you picture?
You probably wouldn't picture a scatterbrained housewife famously stuffing chocolates into her mouth on a conveyor belt.
Right, exactly. But today, we are looking way past the polka dot dresses and the slapstick routines.
The disconnect between the public persona and the private reality is just massive here. I mean, we are so used to seeing the clown that we completely miss the architect operating right behind the scenes.
Yeah, which is exactly why we're doing this. So welcome to this deep dive. Today, we've pulled together a fascinating stack of sources for you. We've got biographical archives, historical timelines, and some really detailed encyclopedic records, all to uncover the real Lucille Ball.
It's such a wild ride.
It really is. Our mission is to show you a story of incredible resilience, of breaking barriers, and of building a Hollywood empire from the absolute ground up. So, okay, let's unpack this. Who was the woman behind the iconic red hair?
Well, in plain language, Lucille Ball was a comedian, an actress, and a history-making executive. She actually became the very first woman to run a major television studio.
Which is huge.
Oh, massive. But her story matters to you today because she didn't just, star in the golden age of television. She basically laid its financial foundation.
Yeah.
The way we consume media right now, the entire economic structure of reruns and syndication. That traces directly back to the business mechanics she and her team invented in the early 1950s.
It's crazy to think about. And, I'm looking through these early biographical records, and I keep waiting to find the lucky break. But it is just a wall of trauma and rejection.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy start at all.
Not even close.
Yeah.
To understand her ambition, we really have to start in Jamestown, New York. This is in 1911. When she was just 3 years old, her father died of typhoid fever.
And the archives note a highly specific, visceral detail from that day that stayed with her forever.
Oh, the bird.
Right. A bird flew into the house on the exact day he died. And from that moment on, she developed a severe, lifelong phobia of birds.
Which makes sense, honestly.
It does. It is a stark reminder of how these very early, uncontrollable experiences just anchor themselves in our psychology. They really shape our sense of security.
Yeah, absolutely. And then her mother eventually remarries, and Lucy ends up being raised partially by her step-grandparents, who are a very puritanical Swedish couple.
Very strict.
Insanely strict. The records show they banished all mirrors from the house, like all of them, except for a single one over the bathroom sink.
Wow.
Yeah, and if Lucy was caught even glancing at her reflection, admiring herself in any way, she was severely chastised for being quote-unquote vain.
Which is, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes this huge psychological catalyst.
How so?
Well, when you are starved of something, in this case, basic self-admiration or external validation, you often seek out an alternative mechanism to get it.
Oh, right, like an audience.
Exactly. At age 12, she performed in a chorus line for a local show, and suddenly she discovered that performing was this guaranteed, socially acceptable mechanism to gain praise.
So she finds this outlet, but Hollywood is still, a million miles away.
Mm-hmm.
At 15, she goes to New York City and enrolls in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts.
That's the one that Davis was at, right?
Yes. She's in class alongside Bette Davis, who is clearly the star pupil. But her teachers were brutally harsh to Lucy. They told her she had absolutely no talent.
Ouch.
Yeah. She later said, and this is an exact quote from the sources, "All I learned in drama school was how to be frightened."
That is heartbreaking. She's facing constant rejection in the theater world. But, instead of quitting, she pivoted to a totally different kind of performance.
And modeling.
Right. She started modeling for Hattie Carnegie, a really prominent designer at the time, and Carnegie actually made her dye her brown hair blonde.
Wait, she wasn't a natural redhead?
Yep, natural brunette.
Huh?
But more importantly than the hair, she learned the physical mechanics of presentation.
Oh, I have the quote for this. Ball later said that Carnegie taught her, quote, how to slouch properly in a $1,000 hand-sewn sequin dress, and how to wear a $40,000 sable coat as casually as rabbit.
That quote is incredible.
I know, right? She's basically learning the mechanics of illusion, how to project wealth and ease, even when she has absolutely neither of those things.
Precisely. She was learning how to command physical space, right, and manipulate an audience's perception of her.
But then just as she's getting some momentum, she gets hit with rheumatoid fever.
Which is brutal.
Yeah, she's completely sidelined, physically unable to work for 2 full years. So I have a theory here.
Let's hear it.
Okay, she's told she has no talent. She's physically incapacitated by a serious illness. By the time she actually recovers, her resilience just has to be off the charts.
Absolutely.
Like, how does she go from a terrified drama dropout to becoming known as the queen of the B-movies in Hollywood?
Well, because all of those roadblocks forged an absolutely ironclad work ethic. When she finally made it to Hollywood in the 1930s as a contract player, she didn't just sit around waiting to be cast as a leading lady.
Right.
She treated the studio system like a laboratory. She actively befriended silent film legends like Buster Keaton. She studied them.
Wait, really? Meaning she was learning physical comedy directly from the masters of the silent era.
Yes, but it was more than just learning how to take a fall. She absorbed the geometry of physical comedy.
The geometry?
Yeah, slapstick is highly mathematical. You have to hit your mark perfectly, time the swing of a prop, and manage all the logistics of a set so nobody actually gets hurt.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. She learned the mechanical operations of the industry from the very bottom up. She wasn't an overnight sensation at all. She was an obsessive student of production.
Which, honestly, completely changes how we should look at her transition to television. Because the catalyst for creating I Love Lucy wasn't some grand artistic ambition to, invent this sitcom. It was actually a desperate, highly personal attempt to save her struggling marriage.
That is the pivotal turning point right there. In 1940, she met Cuban bandleader Desilu on a movie set, and they eloped.
As you do in Hollywood.
Right. But by the late 1940s, the marriage was incredibly strained. They had these separate, hectic touring schedules, and Desi's infidelities were becoming a major, major issue.
So around this time, she has a hit radio show on CBS called My Favorite Husband. And CBS executives approach her and say, hey, let's move this to the new medium. Let's put it on television.
The big leap.
Yeah. And Lucy sees an opportunity to fix her personal life. She tells them she will only do the TV show if her real-life husband, Desi, plays her television husband.
Which was a bold demand.
Very bold. The goal was simply to keep him in Hollywood, working alongside her, so he wouldn't be out on the road. But CBS executives pushed back aggressively.
They couldn't fathom it. The network executives claimed that the American public would never accept an Anglo-American redhead married to a Cuban man with a strong accent.
Which is just so narrow-minded.
Yeah, they lacked the imagination to see how that chemistry would translate to the screen.
But here's where her work ethic kicks in again. Instead of accepting the network's no, Lucy and Desi literally take the show on the road.
They built a vaudeville act, right?
Exactly. They put together a vaudeville act to prove their chemistry worked for live audiences. It was essentially a live cross-country A/B test of their dynamic.
And the audiences loved it.
They did. So CBS finally caves. But here's the massive business turning point. CBS and the corporate sponsors wanted to broadcast the show live from New York.
Because that was the industry standard.
Right. But Lucy and Desi flat out refuse. They want to stay in Hollywood.
And we really have to look at the technology of the era to understand why this was such a huge battle.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so if you broadcast live from New York, the East Coast gets a crystal clear picture. But because of the time difference, the West Coast gets what was called a kinescope.
And a kinescope is basically just a film camera pointed directly at a television monitor, right? Like recording this stream.
Yeah, exactly. And it resulted in a muddy, blurry, terrible image. Desi and Lucy refused to let their work look like that.
I don't blame them.
No. So they demanded the show be shot on high-quality 35mm film. But 35mm film was incredibly expensive. The network was not going to foot that bill.
So network executives are treating TV like a live theater performance. Like once the curtain falls, the broadcast vanishes into the ether and you move on.
Exactly.
But Desi and Lucy strike a deal. They offer to take a massive pay cut, and they pay the extra production costs for the 35mm film entirely out of their own pockets.
But they had one condition.
Yes. Their own production company, Desilu, would retain the full ownership rights to the physical film negatives after the episodes aired.
This is the genius part.
Here's where it gets really interesting. By demanding to use 35mm film, Desi realized he wasn't just putting on a play, he was building real estate. He could rent that exact same pristine episode to 100 different markets.
That is exactly the mechanism. Desilu was uncommonly shrewd. He foresaw the value of reselling those high-quality episodes to new independent TV stations springing up all across America.
Which was a brand new concept.
Totally. There was no concept of a rerun before this.
Right.
By capturing it on film, they possessed a tangible, resaleable asset.
And that singular demand made them unprecedentedly wealthy. It completely inverted the economics of television.
Oh, CBS had to pay up eventually.
Yeah, CBS later had to buy the rights back from Desilu just to get control of their own network's show. And they had to pay $1 million, which was an astronomical fortune back then.
And that massive cash injection helped fund Desilu Studios.
It's brilliant.
They shifted the power dynamic from the corporate networks to the actual creators. By owning the negatives, they quite literally owned their own future.
And having secured that creative control and the business rights, Ball and Arnaz suddenly possessed a massive cultural platform, and they used it to push against the strict cultural boundaries of the 1950s.
Sometimes intentionally and sometimes entirely by accident.
Right. The most famous example, of course, being her pregnancy. During the run of the show, Ball became pregnant in real life.
And today, writing a pregnancy into a sitcom is completely standard.
Barely even a storyline.
Exactly. But in the early 1950s, the concept of acknowledging pregnancy on television was considered completely scandalous.
It was practically banned. CBS executives and various religious figures had to formally approve the storyline before it could even move forward.
And even with that approval, the actual word pregnant was strictly forbidden from being spoken on the air.
So they had to use the word expecting, or as Desi deliberately mispronounced it to get a laugh, spectin.
What's fascinating here is how this boundary pushing resonated with the public. The episode where she tells Ricky she's pregnant was titled Lucie est enceinte.
Using the French word.
Right, using the French word for pregnant, because they were barred from using the English one. And it became an absolute cultural phenomenon, and the timing was masterfully orchestrated.
Unbelievably masterful. 44 million viewers tuned in to watch her television character give birth on the exact same day that Lucille Ball delivered her real son, Desi Jr., via a planned C-section in Los Angeles.
That is just brilliant.
She was on the cover of the very first issue of TV Guide. It is a masterclass in PR. But, they also hit some very dangerous cultural tripwires shortly after.
Yeah, they collided with the Red Scare.
Yeah. In 1953, the anti-communist hysteria in America was at its absolute peak. And Ball found herself sitting in front of investigators from HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee.
And looking at the historical documents, it's important to just lay out the facts of what happened objectively here for you.
Right. Back in 1936, she had registered to vote with her party affiliation listed as communist.
But her defense to the committee was that she had done it strictly to appease her grandfather, who was a staunch socialist.
Yeah, and she stated on the record that she never intended to vote as a communist. Ultimately, the FBI formally cleared her of any subversive activity.
But the optics of even being investigated were terrifying. In the 1950s, a whisper of a HUAC investigation was enough to get actors, writers, and directors blacklisted permanently.
Careers evaporated overnight.
Just gone.
So I'm struggling with the math here. Hundreds of actors were blacklisted in the 50s for far less than an actual voter registration card. By all the rules of the era, CBS should have fired her that afternoon and buried the story.
Oh, easily.
How did she survive it when so many others were just destroyed?
Well, they couldn't bury it, and they didn't fire her because of a brand new psychological phenomenon, the parasocial relationship.
Oh, yeah.
The American public felt a deep personal connection to the character of Lucy Ricardo. They invited her into their living rooms every single week.
So they felt like they knew her?
Exactly. And Desi Arnaz brilliantly diffused the tension before a live studio taping right as the news broke. He addressed the audience directly and quipped, "The only thing red about Lucy is her hair, and even that is not legitimate."
That is incredible crisis management. He uses humor to frame the accusation as absurd.
He gave the audience permission to laugh, right, to separate the beloved character from the political panic, but make no mistake, she ultimately survived because I Love Lucy was the most profitable machine in entertainment.
Really talks.
Always. The network simply couldn't afford to lose the revenue she generated.
So they built an untouchable business empire to protect their show. And ironically, it outlasted the very marriage the show was meant to save.
Yeah, that's the tragedy of it.
That divorce in 1960 forced a massive power vacuum at Desilu, which brings us to the final act of her career.
She called the marriage a nightmare toward the end, citing his continued drinking and infidelity, though the archives do note they remained close friends until his death.
She remarried a comedian named Gary Morton in 1961 and famously told a friend in a letter, "Boy, did I pick a winner."
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah, she seemed to find personal peace. But professionally, she stepped into a role no woman had ever held. In 1962, she bought out Desi's share of Desilu Productions.
And that move made her the very first woman to run a major television studio.
And we need to be clear that she wasn't just a figurehead or a silent partner.
Not at all.
She was an actively engaged studio boss, making massive, creative, operational, and financial decisions.
And the shows Desilu produced under her leadership are shocking when you look at her personal brand.
Right. She is known for slapstick. She's known for stomping grapes and making ridiculous faces.
But her studio produced gritty, dramatic television like The Untouchables.
Yeah.
They produced Mission Impossible, and famously, she championed and produced Star Trek.
Which still blows my mind.
She literally greenlit the pilot for Star Trek when the network and her own board of directors were super hesitant.
They thought it was too weird.
They thought it was a money pit. But she believed in Gene Roddenberry's vision, and she funded it, overruling the executives.
It just feels like this massive cognitive dissonance. How does the woman, famous for physical gags, bridge the gap to greenlight Mr. Spock and Ethan Hunt? Where does that eye for dramatic talent come from?
Well, if we connect this back to her early years learning from Buster Keaton, it actually makes perfect sense.
How so?
Her success as a studio head wasn't despite her comedy background, it was because of it. Think about the logistics of what she had achieved. She had pioneered the multi-camera live audience format.
Right.
She intimately understood the physical mechanics of production, like how to light a set so 3 cameras could film simultaneously without casting shadows.
Oh, yeah. That takes real technical knowledge.
Exactly. She understood budgets, pacing, and stagecraft. Slapstick requires mathematical precision, and that translates directly to operational logistics in a studio setting.
So she wasn't just making it up as she went along.
No, she possessed an instinctual understanding of what audiences wanted. She knew how to build a world that people wanted to visit every week. She proved that her business acumen was just as razor-sharp as her comedic timing.
And she successfully cashed in on that acumen, too. In 1967, she sold her shares of Desilu to Gulf Plus Western for $17 million.
Which is wild for the 60s.
Yeah, if you adjust that for inflation today, that is over $164 million.
Wow.
But after the sale, she didn't just fade away into retirement. She remained active, starring in new series and teaching a comedy workshop.
I love her quote from that class.
Oh, me too. She famously said, "You cannot teach someone comedy. Either they have it or they don't."
So true.
She ultimately passed away in 1989 from a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm.
But the cultural and structural footprint she left behind is practically inescapable.
It really is. To wrap up this deep dive for you, we've traced a remarkable path. We started with a traumatized, quote-unquote, untalented drama student. We watched her become a B-movie actress, then a comedic icon, and finally a visionary studio executive who quite literally reshaped the economics of the entire entertainment industry.
And her legacy is still everywhere. Posthumously, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
As she should.
Her hometown of Jamestown, New York, has museums dedicated to her. They even had this infamous bronze statue erected in 2009 that looked so uniquely terrifying, the internet dubbed it Scary Lucy.
Oh my gosh, I remember it.
It went totally viral. It became its own weird tourist attraction before they finally replaced it with a better one.
It just goes to show that even in bronze, she knew how to draw an audience.
Absolutely.
But beyond the laughs and the viral statues, there is a really profound business lesson hidden in her story.
Yeah, this raises an important question for all of us to consider. Next time you hit play on a streaming service to binge watch an old favorite, remember that the entire concept of watching a show for a second time exists because a comedian in the 1950s bet on herself. She demanded to use 35mm film and insisted on owning her own work. So where in your own life or career might you be giving away the rights to your own value without realizing it?
That is such a great point. So next time you see that black and white image of the zany redhead with the wide eyes, remember you aren't just looking at a clown. You're looking at the architect who built the screen you're watching her on.